lost praise. He's gone forever.
And we're live, everybody.
Apparently, he fell into a black hole. So
I guess so.
Still got your debate with America, but that's it.
Well,
he was so blown away by how good the debate was that.
Only explanation. That's got to be it.
Well, for anyone just joining us, we were just on Standing for Truth's channel doing a debate between Erika and Bill Morgan, but unfortunately, the person who was actually the one who was physically streaming from his device seems to have been booted and apparently has fallen into an electronic black hole where there's just no signal for anything.
He has been yeeted from the stream.
Somebody should call 911, but after the question and answer.
So what we're going to do is, did we get through the first question?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, let's just ask the first question. I will put the first two questions back in the internal chat so that Standing
about
can
the
get a look.
design.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is let's try to get through that one a little bit quickly, just because we already touched on a little bit possibly. So
I'll be super fast.
Okay. Standing, do you want to ask the first question just so it's on the stream audibly?
Sure. So is this the same question we asked before?
Yeah, because we're not sure how much of it we got to before the stream prematurely ended. So
right, and it kind of works out well because the other stream on my channel, the full debate is there. The only thing missing is the question and answer. So this is the question and answer, and we'll post it. We'll take it from here, and then we'll post it to my channel after. So starting with question number 1 from Landon Freeman. He asks, Erika, what evidence would convince you that life was designed?
Okay, very quick answer. I don't think evolution and design are necessarily divorced from one another. I think something could, I don't know for certain, I'm allowing for the possibility that something could have been evolved via design. I think it would depend on what kind of, what you're defining as design. If you mean design excluding evolution, you would be very hard pressed to find an example I would propose. But if you mean sort of in tandem, sure, I would be open to the idea of evidence that you could present. It would probably have to be a very, very complex organism or mechanism, I suppose, wherein there were currently no explanations for rather its evolution, and sort of the consensus was leaning towards we don't know, maybe, but it would depend. The thing is there's so many different factors. End question.
Can I rebut real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, the definition of design means planned. Chance means unplanned. I wasn't the greatest ever, but I was a design engineer for 37 years. And if there's a design, there has to be a designer. There has to be a planner. Now, once a student asked me, Bill, are you saying it's impossible for an eye to happen by chance? And I say, I propose it's impossible for one protein. Where's my camera? One protein to happen by chance. A protein is the proper sequence of amino acids. Real quickly, I won't burden you with the math. The odds of one protein happening in the human body by chance is 10 to the 500th power. And I have slides for that, but it's 3 o'clock for poor Erika. We're going to keep you awake until you convert through sleep deprivation.
It's okay. I stay up pretty late usually anyway.
Careful, that's literally a cult tactic.
But anyway,
listen, Bill. Send me that source. I would be interested to see it. I would be interested to see if they take the pressures like natural selection into account.
Do you have a pen?
I do.
Okay, 20 amino acids make up 20? A protein. The average protein in humans is 400 amino acids long.
Okay.
10 to the 400th. I'm sorry, 20 to the 400th power, 20 amino acids, 400 possibilities, is 10 to the 520th power. Statistically impossible is anything over 10 to the 50th. So, Erika, the sequence of one protein in your body could not happen by chance. Your eye can't happen by chance because your eye is more than just a bunch of protein.
I think, though, that we have to remember that with evolutionary theory, chance isn't the only thing at play. Natural selection isn't chance-based. Natural selection is directional given what pressure is being applied. So I would agree that it's sort of like the tornado going through the junkyard, right? That doesn't take natural selection into account. So yes, if you're looking purely at chance, I would agree. But chance isn't the only element at play. is what I'd argue. Oh, so cute.
Okay.
Where's that
We
going?
have to move on
It's
soon.
sort of existing things. It doesn't create anything.
All right, I think we're going to call that question there because we have to. We're going to have to move on because we can't keep going forever. So the next question is from Landon Freeman, who may or may not be in the chat. And if you aren't, I'm very sorry about that. This is his second question for Erika is what is in your opinion, the creationists' strongest argument?
Oh, that's a good question. What would I think is the strongest argument that creationists make? I think if you're going to take the creationism route, what Bill's doing is probably going to be your best bet, is to argue that design exists and to point out irreducible complexity when it appears. I think as a caveat for that, I have yet to see a mechanism or organ or structure or whatever that is irreducibly complex in that it has no precursor structures. And again, we're assuming evolution here, so living things are already a thing. But yeah, I think that some of those really they make me do research, and I tend to find additional information that I'm like, oh yes, okay, that's parsimonious. But they are very interesting arguments, I will say.
Quick rebuttal. Echolocation to me is an amazing design. I'm sure Erika would agree. But echolocation is only the hardware. You need the software. Suppose somebody said, hey, Erika, come to my house. There's going to be a party. And then he took off. And you had a great car. You had great GPS. What information do you need to go to the party? Where is it? And when is it?
The address and the time.
Right. You need the software information. And the beautiful whales that migrate, they need to know to go south at a certain time of the year. So design, I agree with her. Design is the strongest argument. As I look at my sleeping dog here, with just the digestive system, the circulatory, the nervous system, I really think an open-minded person would say there's got to be a designer, and we could disagree how it got there, but to me, that's irrefutable.
Okay, I think we're going to move on because we can't have every question become a discussion as much as we would like to. Some people have to get to bed here, like someone in London. All right. So, Standing, you want to give our next question, which is for Bill?
Sounds good. Yeah. Okay. So this question is from Science is Observable. For Bill, I'll read it word for word. I'm not an evolutionist. I believe in creation, but I would like to ask you, what are your thoughts on junk DNA?
Well, I was born in 1960 in a suburb of Buffalo, New York. That's a joke. Sorry about that. Okay, too late to joke. Junk DNA. First time I heard that term was in the 90s. Entrons and introns, where people would say, "Hey, most of the DNA doesn't code for genes, therefore it's junk." And anything I say wrong, I'll just blame that I'm an engineer, not a biologist. But it was called junk DNA before Erika was even born. Well, I had a talk with a guy named Mark Eastman. He was big in genetics. And now, as I understand it, the part of the DNA that doesn't code to make genes is a conductor of an orchestra. In an orchestra, you've got all kinds of instruments, and they play at different times for different lengths. In my understanding, what they used to call junk DNA is the part of the conductor that tells the gene when to fire, when to turn off, and it can use different parts of the gene to make different types of proteins. So as I understand it now, even the evolutionists do not teach that there is junk DNA.
All right. Quick rebuttal if you want.
Yes, my short rebuttal would be I would direct you to a paper from 2017, which put an upper cap on functional DNA at 20%, which means 80% of the DNA is non-functional in that it does not impact phenotype. So I can shoot that paper your way for you if you'd like.
Does the 80% do anything though, in your opinion?
Based off of at least as far as Standing for Truth, and I had a conversation about this some time ago, but based off of the sort of the knockout tests that they have done with regard to development and things of this nature, not that we know of.
Yeah, look into it. We can learn together.
Okay.
Sure.
I think that's going to do it for that question. Got to make them move along. So our next question is from, let's see, I'm sorry, Dino or Dino? Oh no, that's my end of my time. I'm sorry. I am out of it today, apparently. It was from Guzman1611. My goodness, I cannot keep anything straight today. How does she, I'm going to assume that's for Erika, unless, Bill, are you going by she nowadays?
What? No.
Oh, no, okay.
I'm all man.
How does Erika explain bird footprints in basement rock and Isophera, a yeast-like organism in 3.8 billion-year-old rock when that's when the Earth's oceans formed?
You know, I saw this question in the side chat when the dropping happened, and I plugged it into my search engine to see if I could find sort of the source that they were talking about, because I've never heard of that, and I couldn't find anything. So either it's a bit obscure, or perhaps maybe it's on like the second page of Google, because no one checks the second page.
Yeah, if it's on the first page, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, but I didn't find anything that was referencing either. I checked for Isophora, and then I checked for bird prints in basement rock, but I couldn't find anything on it. I would be interested to see the source if they have it.
Okay, and I hope that at the very least, Guzman1611 can watch this after the fact. SFT and Erika and Bill, as a fact, you were all free to mirror this video if you want to.
Yes. If they do watch this after the fact, Guzman1611, put the source or the sort of claim that you're referencing in the comments, and I'll try to answer it.
Yeah, and if it's in the comments, at least on my channel, I'll make sure to forward it to Erika. So
sure.
Here are the next two questions. Stanley, you want to give that first one?
Sounds good. Okay, so this question is from Erika's best friend to Film Free. So very sweet of him to give you a question. He asks, since organic life meets the criteria for design, 1, specified complexity of order, 2, prescribed function, and 3, probability, why is it logical to say it's not designed? Go ahead.
Because in lab experiments and based off of fossil evidence and indeed in the wild, we are aware of concepts known as precursor mutations, which essentially, when they build up, that's sort of like what Standing for Truth references this sometimes with regard to accumulating negative mutations in the human genetics. But positive mutations can also build up, and they do have an impact on fitness. Sometimes they're silent, sometimes not. Design is a human concept that we apply to things based off of what we think is a good design. There are animals out there that have very wonky designs that certainly could be better fit for their environments, I would suggest. So I think that this definition for design certainly meets the colloquial definition. But as far as saying something is or is not designed, I don't think we have, and this is my answer to the question, I don't think there is an empirical way to measure that. And that in conjunction with the concept of precursor mutations, the fossil record, and genetics, I think it suggests that we have a mechanism that can produce things that very much look designed to our eyes, even if they weren't designed in the same way that I think Neff is going for here.
A lot of things, if you don't mind me saying, would you say, and again, I'm not being condescending, if you had to bet a penny that the octopus is a result of a design, you got to say yes or no, please. And I'll answer yes or no questions for you.
Yeah, sure. Yes or no with regard, like when you say design, you mean like by God, right?
Something with intelligence beyond belief designed, you know about the blue octopus, right?
Yes, yeah.
I love it. Blue octopus can change its camouflage depending on what it swims over. If it's swimming over something green, it turns green. Turns over blue, it turns blue.
The cuttlefish is the same way. They're covered in opsins. And essentially, I would say, if I had to bet a penny, I would say no. I don't think it's designed. Now that I'm confident in that one. I'm confident in that one. If you can propose a pathway, indeed via genetic sequencing, as well as other organisms that display these sort of stepwise periods, forms, things like this, that are suggested by the molecular clock, etc., as well as the fossil record, I don't think there's a reason to propose design. It's not as parsimonious when you can't necessarily empirically prove that there's a designer. You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think you're complicating a simple question for convenience. That's my opinion. But first, the blue octopus, the body has to receive data. It has to transport the data. It has to act on the data. My pit bull is chewing me as I speak.
Go easy on the dog.
What?
She said go easy on the dog.
Oh, no, she wins. She wins every time.
She's a good one.
She's chewing on me. But
No.
Erika, don't you see each step of that is an amazing design? The blue octopus receives data, transports the data, and then has to act on the data. Sometimes I got to say, if you don't see that as a design, I really can't help you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just neurology. I think a lot of what we perceive as design is response stimulus over the course of multiple generations. That's just how I see it. I mean, there are a lot of questions that I think when you say answer yes or no, as you know, I require quite a bit of qualifying when I'm like, well, yes, but, or no, but. There are caveats to everything because I think that science and especially biology is a very muddy pool to be trying to define.
All right, I think I'm going to say, Bill, why don't you give one sentence as your final thought on this one before we go on to the next question?
Well, if it didn't get there by design, how did it get there? How did the blue octopus do that?
Well, we're going to move on to the next question, though. So that's
Sure,
we can leave that hanging for perhaps another future interaction.
Sure.
So our next question is from Call Me Emo, and it is for Bill. By what method or methods do we distinguish similarities due to common ancestry from similarities due to common design in biology?
I'm going to do my best to answer that. You read it faster than my brain worked.
I'll just ask it again. So this is from Call Me Emo for Bill. By what method or methods do we distinguish similarities due to common ancestry from similarities due to common design in biology?
Okay, well, my answer to that would be through genetics. We look at the gene sequencing. We look at the DNA. And by gene sequencing, people can tell if that's related or not. If you find a bone in the desert and you want to determine if it's a camel or a coyote or a person, you look at the genetics, and that's the identification for that. And as to a common designer, I don't think I understand that part of the question. Could you read that part again?
Yeah, sure. So how is it that you can distinguish things that are due to common ancestry versus things that are due to a common designer in biology? So if there's a similarity from common ancestry, how do we know it's ancestry versus design?
Okay, well, common ancestry to me is all canines have a canine ancestor, all felines have a feline ancestor, et cetera, equine. I do not believe that horses are related to pine trees. The evolutionist believes everything has a common ancestor somewhere down the road. And I just distinguish it. Again, guys, read, and I'm not being condescending. Mitochondrial Eve clearly teaches all humans have the same common ancestor.
We do actually have a question about mitochondrial Eve in the list.
Yeah, it's a human female.
So, Erika, you want to? I think we'll give Erika a quick response. And then
I've got a very quick response. I would say once you go back to the canids and the felids, well, how do you distinguish which was the last carnivoran? What about amphicyonids, the bear dogs? They're indistinguishable. You can't. If you have a great picture, I wish I could pull it up, but it looks like an absolute perfect cross, just morphologically, between a grizzly bear and a gray wolf. And if you use the molecular clock with grizzlies and wolves, guess what? It goes back to the same divergence time that we find that fossil in rock-wise when you radiometrically date it. I think that's a remarkable coincidence. Okay.
And we have another question that I think Standing for Truth will be asking.
Sure. So if this is the right question, looks like it's from
there was a clarification. Why don't you ask the second one, and I'll ask that one because I have the clarification. So
is this the Nephilim free one?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so another question from Nephilim Free. His question is: the criteria design inference are specified complexity of order, prescribed function, probability. Since cellular machinery meets qualifies, why is denial of design scientific?
Is this not just the same question he asked last time?
That did actually look kind of similar to the other one.
Oh, he might have put it in. I might have ended up having it in twice because I believe he typed a couple questions in more than once. One not tagging me and one tagging me. Okay. So if we want, I guess we can go. I'll ask the one for Bill, and then we'll go on to the next couple. So Bill, Luca Medugno, who by the way is joining us from quarantine in Italy.
Oh.
So our hearts go out to you, Luca, because man, you've been telling me about it, and it sounds rough. But anyway, so the question you first typed was ask Bill about his quote atheistic belief, and then I asked for some clarification. And basically, what he wanted to know was when you were an atheist, what would you have said being an atheist means to you?
Okay. I've studied this quite a bit. I thought about it. I love to drive the car with no radio on and just daydream. I believe there's 4 different types of atheists, and I was 2 parts. One type of atheist, in my opinion, hates God, and I fully understand and respect it. If someone was continually abused as a young person, or their parents died when they were a young person, they might just say, the heck with you, God, I hate you, I'm going to war with you. And I know there's a small percentage of people like that, and they're the ones who have the most influence on the worldview. So these people are hating of God, and they trash what I think is good science to defend their beliefs, like life came from non-life. So that's atheist number 1. I wasn't that. I never was mad at God in my life. Atheist number 2 doesn't want to listen to God. That was me. At the age of 14, I didn't want to listen to rules on a book on how to conduct my life. At the age of 14, a lot of things were looking pretty interesting that the Bible said not to do. So I was wavering at the age of 14. And I said, I don't know if I should trust this book. My teacher taught me I came from an ape man. And I said, I'm an atheist. I'm going to do what I want. And I truly, truly felt it was justified by science. So I was motivated to not listen to the teachings of the Bible, but I never hated God. Atheist number 3 caves into intellectual peer pressure. They follow the crowd. And I understand that too. We all trust authority, but sometimes we have to question authority. I love to tell atheists, question authority. But atheist number 4 simply never knew any better. I never heard a creation argument until I was 26 years old. And once I heard it about fossils, biochemistry, genetics, design, thermodynamics, I said, holy cow, this was me. I've been lied to when they taught me everything came from nothing. So I was atheist number 2, atheist number 4, the one who didn't know any counter to evolution. And I'm convinced atheist type number 1 will do anything in their power for atheist number 4 to hear anything about creation. If a teacher mutters the word God or even mutters the word design, not all, but a lot of people are willing to come down on them and sue them, threaten their job, their tenure, etc., saying you can't even mention the design word, much less the God word. So there's 4 types of atheists. I didn't want to listen to him, and I didn't know anything else until I heard creation, and then things made sense for me to become a Christian.
Okay, and Erika, I know that you don't describe yourself as an atheist, but if you have any thoughts real quick on what the word would mean to you.
I know a great many atheists. I'm in academia, and many of the ones that I know a lot of agnostics, and I know a lot of Christians too. None that reject evolution, but I do know a lot of Christians. And as for me, an atheist is simply someone who lacks theistic opinion or belief. They've surveyed the evidence, and they find that the most parsimonious explanation would be that there is no God. And that things are sort of usually it's a materialistic or a naturalistic perspective, and they find that very convincing.
Okay.
Which that's what I would think.
All right, and I think we'll move on to the next question. So, Standing, if you could go ahead.
Awesome. Okay, so this question is from Raw Matt. Question for Erika. He says evolution needs beneficial mutations to work, but just like the cecal valve in the Italian wall lizard, it's just an epigenetic change like all the rest. How can evolution work without mutations? Go ahead.
Two things. One, according to P.Z. Myers, a guy who knows quite a bit about this subject, the cecal valves in the Italian wall lizard were indeed novel and not present in the ancestral population. I've heard people propose that it wasn't, but that is not what I'm getting, at least from the literature that I've read on it. On the opposite side, a beneficial mutation is beneficial if it improves the fitness of the organism. This means that a mutation that may be beneficial in one context is indeed, very harmful in another. This is why so many times when creationists talk about how bacteria that adapts themselves sort of to antibiotics are actually weaker than the regular bacteria in their original environment. Yes, but they thrive in the environment with the antibiotics. Hence, that mutation is a benefit for their fitness in the environment in which it was selected for. So yes, beneficial mutations exist everywhere, all the time. Anytime an organism has a mutation that makes them green and they live in green grass, and they go from being sort of a tan color to a green color, that's a beneficial mutation. So yes, I would contest both claims made. And if Matt wants to have a longer chat about this in a debate format, I'm happy to.
All right, and Bill, could you give a quick response?
From my knowledge, there is no question there's beneficial mutations, but the burden on the evolutionists is to compile enough mutations to turn single cell organisms into redwood trees, whales, snails, wallabies, cactus, etc. And from my reading, I don't know of any mutations that add information to the genome. There might be a couple, but I'm not aware of them. But most mutations, and I think Erika would agree, overwhelmingly are either neutral or deleterious, where a mutation causes the genome to lose the ability to make more proteins. So to me, a mutation, trying to use mutations as an explanation to go from bacteria to blue whale, it's like trying to say if Erika gives me $1,000 every day, she's going to become rich. If you're losing information, you're not going to get genetically more complex. Mutation is the wrong mechanism for the person trying to explain how bacteria became a whale.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. And the next question we have is from TD Lane, who I do happen to know is in the chat. So that's good. And this is a question for Bill. Bill, have you looked into therapsids?
Yeah, I was dating a girl once, and she was going through a lot of pressures, and we went to see a therapist. Thank you very much. I'm here all week.
That one got a lot from me, Bill.
Tip the waiter.
I thought you were going to say I was dating a girl and she turned out to be a therapsid, which would actually be very believable.
Is that good?
Well, I would say every girl you've ever dated has been a therapsid. So
I don't know if I've looked into them. What is it?
So therapsids, and I'll just jump in here because
please take it, Dapper. You got therapsid better than I do.
Okay, so therapsids are a group of synapsids, which are so synapsids are basically animals with a single hole in their head that they use for jaw muscle attachment. So it goes through the skull onto the jaw, and that's what they bite with. And it includes mammals, and therapsids are that group of synapsids which have a few other traits, but the major one is that they have legs that go straight under the body, like modern mammals do. And the reason that I think TD Lane may be asking is because they were found after a number of evolutionary predictions about the ancestors of mammals were made, and they were found to fit those predictions fairly well.
I can say with no shame or no condemnation, never heard of them.
I
don't think most people have really.
But they're underdogs of the Permian. They're very cool. Whether or not you are into evolution, they're cool animals regardless. You should definitely look into them. They're awesome.
Yes, I would agree.
I will. I love learning. Honestly, one thing I love about these debates, it makes me study and learn, and I love learning.
All right, so we've got a few more questions here. Let me grab some so that I can hopefully have one for Erika and one for Bill. So, all right, here's a couple more. Just gonna copy paste in here. There we go. All right, Standing, you're up.
All right, so it looks like this one's from James Downard. Thanks for the question, James. And Erika, thanks for staying up so late. I know it's probably pretty late over there, so we appreciate it. The question and answer is going fun so far. So question is, another for Bill. It looks like it has to do with the therapsids, actually, so I'll just read it word for word. If you think any of the therapsids were designed, if so, how many kinds were there? And why were so many designed to match evolutionary predictions?
If it was an animal, it was designed. Every atom, every molecule, every cell, every organ. I actually just typed it in my other computer here. Therapsid, beautiful looking beast. So I would tell TD Lane, I believe it is absolutely designed because DNA, proteins, RNA do not happen by chance. That requires a designer. And I have no idea about them matching evolutionary predictions.
Okay. And Erika?
It's cool. You should look into it, especially I showed some cool slides on in my presentation, my opening statement at the beginning, with regard to the migration of the inner ear bones, and that's mimicked in the development of kangaroo rats, which is really cool. So look into they call it the reptile mammal transition, typically, which is a very fascinating series of animals and
Are
transition.
they alive today?
No. Well, it depends. Dapper D, help me out on this. It depends on what you mean.
Right.
Alive? That means not dead.
When you say
it's a broad categorization.
Right.
Like if you're talking
are
about Permian therapsids, no.
Right.
But don't you guys ever get frustrated that all your evidence is dead?
It's not so much a frustration that my evidence is dead. It's frustration that I'm not going to get to see, a gorgonopsid walking in the flesh.
Okay. And again, I say that in friendship. We're buddies.
All right. So our next question, and I almost tried to answer a question because gotta remember, I'm not here to answer questions. I'm here to ask them. Okay. This is for from Science is Observable for Erika. How can mutation explain the incredible biological complexity in living organisms?
Very, very simply, organisms can acquire new traits by, of course, mutation, altering the genetic code, and these mutations can be beneficial and selected for if they do impact the fitness in a positive way. They can add information if there is duplication and sort of frame shift mutations and the like that alter the way that the phenotype is expressed. I heard it once said by an evolutionary biologist that almost no mutation is truly novel outside of the origin of eukaryotes. And this is because almost every mutation is simply an alteration of a previously existing structure or mechanism. This is why it's so incredible. People say, well, it's very convenient that all of these lined up just in this perfect way. That we seem to have all of these, to rag for a bit, perfectly designed organisms. And I would say, well, that's because all of the ones that got the short end of the stick and got bad mutations, or neutral ones when there was an environmental change, died, went extinct as a population, or didn't see their individual as an individual species, didn't reproduce enough to compete. So mutation acted upon by natural selection, not only does it add information, but I firmly believe that it is responsible for all of the biodiversity of life that we see today over a vast, unimaginably long amount of time that is confirmed by radiometric dating.
I can rebut a little bit, right?
Yes.
Okay. Earlier, I asked how many mutations, beneficial mutations, to add information do you think it takes to go from bacteria to a blue whale? Trillions?
I would say a heck of a lot. I don't feel comfortable putting a number on it because I'm not a geneticist, but a lot.
Do you know of any beneficial mutations?
Yes.
That added information.
Yes, the cecal valves in the Italian wall lizards.
Okay, that's one. How many more?
I would say, it depends on what you would mean. Like, I know creationists tend to have different definitions of what new information is. I would calculate, or I would qualify rather, the bacterium Lenski's experiment as adding new information. The E. coli bacteria that I listed in my presentation, which you can go back and look at it, but they found a new means to metabolize their substrate, essentially. I would classify rather changes infer new information. Addition, for instance, like the original transition from, this one is not in present day, but in the past, from a fin to an arm with digits. That would be a beneficial mutation that added information in the aspect that it changed the way that Hox genes are expressed and for how long they're expressed. So beneficial mutations are only beneficial and add information. Well, they all add information if they are indeed, or alter existing information. But adding information, I would say, is just any change to the genetic code. But again, I'm giving you several different answers because I never know what a creationist means when they say, what is new information? Do you get what I mean?
It could make new proteins.
As for making brand new proteins, I think you would be hard pressed to find a pressure that would exist commonly enough to force the adaptation of new proteins instead of just sort of retrofitting previous ones.
So you're fully confident bacteria is the ancestor to blue whales because of mutations that added information?
Some single cellular organism,
Right.
yes.
Okay, well, I think you have more faith than me.
I think we're gonna move on to the next thing. So what's next is we have a quick comment from James Downer, and then our last question. I'm just going to read out the comments, and he says, "Be sure that all mentioned claims have sources that are posted for all of us to check on." I can't enforce that. However, I do think it is good practice to post your sources at the very least for anything that's controversial.
RJ, I am very happy to. I have a source for everything that I said in my presentation. I'm more than happy to pass it along. You know, RJ knows I'm a big source gal. I love good sourcing practice.
All right, and Bill, any chance that we're gonna get I can post it in what do you call them? The description or anything. If anyone wants to email me their list of sources.
I listed a lot of my sources on my slides at the bottom.
Okay.
If there's more that you need, I'll be happy to get them.
Okay.
But I really hate to post something that's not referenced.
Okay.
I hate to misquote people.
Right, and also I didn't grab it, but it will be up on the description for this video, the original debate that we are taking questions from. So our last question of the night is from James Downard for Bill. Bill, the predicted protofeather transitional form has been found preserved in amber. Why is that?
Well, first, I'm not going to say I'm even close to being an expert on this, but I don't know if that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know if that protofeather predates the feather I showed earlier that was dated to be 150 million years old. I don't know, and I'm being sincere, how his protofeather is different than an existing feather. So for me to give a cogent, lucid answer to that, I would have to know more about which protofeather he's talking about.
Okay. And Erika, do you have anything real quick?
I would like to, if I can, add some sources to my list that cover feather transitions quite well and covers the difference between a protofeather and an existing feather. And I will also include, Bill, I would love it if you bought this book, The Bible Rocks in Time. Two Christian geologists, they're cool dudes. I'm just saying. But also, Dapper D, I think you missed one of the questions from Faithful, Honest, and True over here to the right.
Oh,
I'm just
did. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm very, very excited to answer this.
All right. Well, then I will ask it real quick.
Well, which protofeather? Does anybody know? I just Googled it. It looks like a peacock feather to me.
I'm not sure exactly which feather he was referencing. So okay. It's probably a bit late now, but if RJ gets more information to me, I can forward that to you, or he can send it to you directly. I don't know. Let's see. So from Faithful, Honest, and True, I'm sorry for almost skipping this question. It's actually a really good question. This is a question for Erika. Observed mitochondrial DNA mutation rates take us back to Eve 6,000 years ago. Could Erika please explain how evolutionists can think that making up mitochondrial DNA rates to get them back to 200,000 years is science?
Yeah, that's from Jeanson's book, Nathaniel Jeanson's book, Replacing Darwin. And Jeanson fails abysmally when it comes to calculating mutation rates for several reasons. One, he uses dyads instead of triads, which is basically, instead of comparing, getting a mutation rate between a mother, a daughter, and a grandmother, and thus capably being able to separate gametic mutations from somatic mutations, what he does is he just uses dyads, so mothers and daughters. But more than that, to fit the I'm going to read this because I think this is, I've got this pulled up. To fit the observed rates into his own model, what Jeanson does is he explains African diversity, which is much higher than areas outside of Africa, for many reasons that are very heavily covered in anthropology. But he uses a paper from the 70s that notes that 33% of married girls and women were between 15 to 19, and then proposes that the generation time is 15 years, using the low end of a 33% number and applying it to the entire population. He also proposes that the African mutation rate is 2 times higher because otherwise he can't get his desired timescale, when previously in the exact essentially chapter that he's writing this in at the very beginning in the opener when he's talking about mutation rates. He asserts over and over again that mutation rates are constant because he doesn't like that evolutionists talk about slowdown time, which is essentially why mutation rates change through time. So Nathaniel Jeanson, I don't mean to disparage an individual. That's not typically my practice, but I find it very hard to believe that someone as distinguished as Nathaniel Jeanson with the credentials that he has missed that by accident. And I'm very much not a big fan of skewing data, so I would not consider myself a huge fan of Nathaniel Jeanson. That would be my answer. Faithful, honest, and true. You have my email. You comment a lot on my posts. Just email me, dude. We can talk about it.
All right, Bill, do you have anything to say about mitochondrial Eve and timescales?
Sure. Going back to my simplicity, we could be in Arizona, see a car driving 50 miles per hour. Now we have no idea what it was doing 10 minutes ago. We don't know the rate of anything that's not observed in the present. I'm not an expert, but I've read up on molecular clocks and things like this. And even the evolutionists argue among themselves about the rates of mutation. To say that the mutation rate has been constant for a long, long period of time, to me is just ridiculous and perhaps convenient for either side to say, whether Christian or non-Christian. You don't know what the rate was. Maybe somebody underwent mutations through nature. Maybe there's natural mutations. But just to say something's been constant for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, I think is capricious.
Okay. Well, I think that is pretty much it for the questions. We're not taking any more. Sorry, chat. We already took them over on Standing for Truth's original stream. I want to thank everyone for coming by and also for coming over to my channel, because this was a last-minute emergency stopgap because of technical problems with Standing for Truth's channel. Thank you, everyone who's in the chat. Great thanks to our debaters and Standing for Truth, who set this whole thing up and hosted the vast majority of the debate. So if you haven't seen that, if you're just coming in here just because you saw that I was streaming, please go to Standing for Truth's channel. It's linked in the description. Erika's channel is linked in the description. Bill Morgan's channel is linked in the description. Please go subscribe to them. And we have a $2.99 redo super chat from Ian Chen. Says, Dapper and Erika rocks. Love you guys. Thank you very much, Ian.
Very sweet.
I also want to say that Bill and Standing have been excellent tonight. I think one of my favorite things about Bill Morgan as a debater is that he is always polite, and he also tends not to dodge questions, which a lot of debaters do.
Wow. Who said that?
Oh, that was me.
We're trying to figure out what's true, right?
Absolutely.
Bill and I are in solidarity in our everlasting love for our canine companions.
All right. And we are right now thinking that there's going to be an after show. What for me is tomorrow. What for Erika is simply later on today.
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. You guys are.
Erika, a party animal.
I am.
I'm thinking 12 p.m. Pacific, which I believe is 7 in London.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
Okay, and Bill, would that work for you if you wanted to come by?
What time?
It's noon Pacific or 3 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, I'm Pacific. Church got canceled, Erika, because of the virus.
Oh, Bill, don't get me started on the virus.
Oh goodness.
This virus thing is.
Don't say that word too much though, because YouTube is demonetizing things.
True. Certainly more for others. The beer issue is what I'll say instead. is definitely wreaking havoc across the globe, and wrecking everybody's plans, as well as taking lives, which is terrible in varying degrees. Definitely more so for some than others, but terrible nonetheless.
The beer.
Okay. We're using that to refer to the same problem that you were referring to, because YouTube has a habit of, if people talk about it too directly, shutting down the monetization on that video. So we're trying to avoid the V word, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate aspect of the platform, but yeah, the beer issue. It's a little euphemism for it, or not really. It doesn't matter.
I will make noon Pacific time work.
Okay.
Unless if something comes up, who should I text if I can't make it?
You can just send an email to me. That'll work. Or you can tweet at me. That'll work too.
And your email address, please?
It is You know what? I'll just type it into the internal chat because it's on the channel too. But here we go. Ready? Here's the clickety clackety.
It's a very pleasant sound.
It is, isn't it? It's nice and soothing. So yeah, there it is. It's the.dapper.dino.yt@gmail.com. Super long because all of the shorter ones were already taken. So yeah, so noon, show up here. I'm going to be posting setting that up. It'll probably be StreamYards again, so I'll just send everyone a link to the StreamYard. I'll just use the same email chain. Yeah, and I'm also open for having it open to additional people. So if you really want to come in and we don't have a full room already, as long as everyone else is okay with letting whoever wants in, we can. After shows are much more informal. I can even answer questions because it has been hard sometimes to not say anything.
Dapperdy's been itching. He's been really wanting to get in.
Oh yeah, it's been a struggle, and I'm sure everyone who's moderated a debate on a subject where that's sort of in their wheelhouse, that's a feeling that they have. So, but thanks everybody. I think we are going to call it a night. Erika, go to bed.
I know. Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Dapperdy. Thanks, Standing. Really appreciate the hosting and the moderating and the debating. I had a great time.
Me too.
All right.
One young lady.
No problem.
Okay,
You may as well just pull an all-nighter now, Erika. Just kidding. Get some sleep.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Okay, good night.
All right. Good night, Bill. Standing, any last words? Oh, Standing's gone. And remember, everybody, do subscribe to everyone here. So I'll talk to y'all later.
Good night.
Good night.